At first, Nathaniel was skeptical of the claim that Philip had found the Messiah. But then Jesus said to him, "Before Philip called you, I saw you under the fig tree." And skeptic to believer in no time. Hey YouTube, it's Dwayne here. So every time I read through John chapter 1, I always pause when I come to that story about Jesus calling Philip and then Philip talking to Nathaniel. Because in seemingly one or two replies from Jesus causes Nathaniel to turn from utter skepticism to total belief in Jesus. So today we're going to take a look at what transpired when Jesus and Nathaniel had their interaction together. So before we get started, why don't you take a moment and like the page, subscribe, and click that bell notification so that when new content is up, you're notified. So as with any talk over the scriptures, the best place to start is within the text itself. So let's take a look at the passage in John. So it's John chapter 1, verses, we'll say 46 to the end of the chapter. And it goes like this. And Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" This is in response to Philip telling him, "I found the Messiah." Philip said to him, "Come and see." So Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him and said of him, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no deceit." Nathanael said to him, "How do you know me?" And Jesus answered and said to him, "Before Philip called you when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." Nathanael answered and said to him, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." So this is the passage we're talking about. Now, in my own looking over this issue, I found two potential interpretations of what's actually going on here. I'll share them both, and then I'll tell you which one I think it is and why. So the first interpretation actually sees this as an exchange of sarcasm. So we see some sarcasm here, according to this interpretation, from Jesus, and we see some sarcasm from Nathaniel. So let me show you what this sarcasm would have seemed like. So imagine Philip comes running toward him and saying, "We found the Messiah. We have found him whom Moses and the prophets have told us about." Upon hearing this, Nathaniel's response would be something like this. "Nazareth? Could anything good come out of Nazareth?" And so Philip would have been like, "Come, see, come." So even though Nathaniel has a bit of doubt at this point, he's still willing to go and see. And that's an interesting point. So just because we're not entirely sure of something doesn't mean we can't check it out. But anyway, that's a side point. So upon coming, Jesus comes up to him. And as Nathaniel is approaching Jesus, Jesus says to him, "Behold, an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." And of course, Nathaniel responds, "How do you even know me?" And Jesus turns to him and says, "Before Philip called you, I saw you under the fig tree." "Oh, Rabbi, you saw me under a fig tree. You must be the Son of God and the King of Israel." What, because I said to you I saw you under the tree, you're impressed by that? Well, follow me and you'll see much greater things than that. That's the type of sarcasm that this interpretation leaves us with. And I mean, it's funny to think about that an exchange could happen like that. And I suppose in some way it could have. But you see, I don't think this happened, because Jesus' final answer after all this is done goes like this. He says, "Most assuredly, I say to you, hereafter you shall see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Men." And that is such a serious statement that Nathaniel would understand, right? That's referencing back to Jacob in the Old Testament when he has that dream and he sees a ladder in heaven and angels are ascending and descending on that. This is what he's referencing. So if this was just a simple exchange of sarcasm, this just comes out of nowhere. So let's take a look at the second interpretation. And the second interpretation is a little more supernatural. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. So if we go through this again, you find out first that Nathaniel asked this question, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" And so the idea he's portraying here is he's obviously skeptical. There's no question in the text that he's skeptical of Philip's initial claim. And so when he follows Philip to see the Messiah, you notice here that Nathanael goes to Jesus. And when Jesus sees him coming, he calls out to Nathaniel and says, "Behold an Israelite indeed, in whom is no deceit." So he compliments him. He gives them the benefit of the doubt. And it's interesting how, Nathaniel's reaction is one of doubt. But Jesus' reaction to Nathaniel is to compliment him and to say that he's an Israelite indeed. But where this gets interesting is Nathaniel, rightly so, asks him, "How do you know this? How do you know me?" Right? Because if some random person off the street just gave me a compliment like that, I would probably ask the same thing. "How do you know me?" And Jesus' response is this, and this would have perked up the ears of Nathaniel. He says, "Before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you." And this changes Nathaniel's mind. This is the interpretation we're going with. Just hearing that phrase, he got thinking something when Jesus said them. And his response, of course, was the recognition that the rabbi, that he is the Son of God, and that he is the King of Israel. So what happened under the fig tree? So here's mentioned in many commentaries is that under the fig tree was considered to be a time of devotionals or prayer or study. A lot of the rabbis of the time would just find a comfortable place under a tree and specifically a fig tree. And this is in some of the writings, apparently in the Talmud. And they would go under the tree and they would study and they would pray and they would otherwise have their communion time with the Lord. So the idea here is that Nathaniel was underneath this fig tree having his time with the Lord. Now, we don't know exactly what he was doing, but this seems to suggest some piety amongst Nathaniel. So when Jesus said that he saw him under the fig tree, it connected whatever moment of piety that he was having underneath that tree with the reality of the kingship and the messiahship of Jesus. So with that in mind, let's take this home. So when we are having our devotions, when we are having our time with the Lord, and we set ourselves underneath our proverbial fig tree, we can expect that God will see us. We can expect that Jesus will see us. And he will reassure us of the things that he is teaching us from the scriptures, and he will speak to us in those moments, just like he is speaking to Nathaniel. So I have presented two interpretations of this passage. The first one, I don't think we can take it too seriously, as fun as it is. I think this passage shows more piety and more of the supernatural knowledge that Jesus had of who Nathaniel was. So just like Nathaniel, when we're in our time under that fig tree, we can expect to hear from God, and he knows us and he sees us. So rest assured, brothers and sisters, be encouraged, and we'll see you next time.